I'm calling back to order this meeting of the Sacramento City Unified School Board of Education. If we can have student member Nguyen read our broadcast statement.
This meeting of the Sacramento City School Board is being recorded in its entirety and will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T Uverse. Today's meeting will air Sunday, February 18th at 9 a.m., Monday, February 19th at 12 p.m., and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. We welcome members of the audience to address the board. Please complete a speakerphone form located in the back of the community room and give them to our communications representative along with any handouts that you may have for the board prior to the conclusion of the item's presentation. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. Please limit comments during public comment to items that are not on the agenda. If you do comment on an item that is on the agenda, we ask that you please defer your comments until your item comes up on the agenda. Please also turn off your cell phones and place them on silent or vibrate. Thank you.
Thank you, Student Board Member Nguyen. The Pledge of Allegiance tonight will be led by Rosemont High School's wrestling team.
You got it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Board Member Christina Pritchett will be presenting your certificate tonight.
Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you, President Ryan. The Rosemont Wrestling Program has a great deal to be proud of. In 2007, they won their first League of Championship in the school's history. That year, they also sent a male wrestler to the state tournament and accomplished that again in 2017. In 2015, they won the individual team Division IV section championship, the first section championship in the school's history. The team has earned 5 league titles: 2007, 2008, 2012, 2017, and 2018. This year, the Rosemont Wrestling Team has won the 2018 Dual Division IV section championship title. They are the first Sac City school to earn this title since 1986, when the tournament started. In addition to the team title, sophomore Danielle Garner, did I pronounce that correct? Okay, has placed second in the Northern Regional Tournament for the past 2 years and plans to make it into the state tournament this year. Thanks much to head coach Rick Wanlin, who had been the wrestling coach at Sac City, with Sac City since 1998 and started Rosemont's program in 2004. And a little side note, he's also a great football coach. He was my son's football coach. The coaching staff also includes Daniel Ramsey, who has volunteered his time with the team for the past 3 years, and Rosemont's graduate Zach Augustine. These individuals are to be commended for building and sustaining a culture of respect and integrity and commitment in these student athletes. Congratulations to all of you for a job well done. Would you like to say a few words? Coach? Team leader, you want to come say a few words?
Sure. I didn't know I was going to speak here, but thank you for the recognition. We really appreciate it. These kids work really hard, pretty much year-round. When we won the tournament this year, it was just one of those special days where we went into the tournament as the number 4 seed and ended up knocking off the 1 seed and the 2 seed in the championship. And it was just a magical day that the kids rised up to the occasion, and it was just phenomenal. As a coach, you look forward to those days, and I'm just so proud of the kids and the staff. And also I'd like to thank the administration who's here supporting us, and they always support us at our school. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Go Wolverines.
Photo bomber.
Short, so I'll be in front.
They're tall.
Yeah, I think they're gonna block you.
Thank you again. Congratulations. We appreciate your hard work and dedication. Item 5.0, announcement of action taken in closed session.
One announcement, Madam President, by a unanimous vote of the board, approval was given to a settlement regarding OEH case number 2017-101-0880 regarding a special education matter. That concludes my announcement, Madam President.
Thank you. Item 6.0, agenda adoption. We have a
Second.
motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
And our student board members' preferential vote. Thank you. The motion carries. Item 7.0, special presentation. 7.1, approve resolution number 2986, recognition of Lunar New Year, which will be presented by board member Darrell Wu.
Thank you, Madam President. Whereas February 16, 2018 will usher in the Lunar New Year of 4716, the Year of the Dog, and festivities will continue until March 2nd, 2018. And whereas the dog represents loyalty and honesty, whereas people born in the Year of the Dog are believed to be independent, sincere, loyal, and decisive. The Lunar New Year is of great significance and represents a major celebration for Chinese and many other Asian Pacific people throughout the world. The Lunar New Year represents a number of important traditional, social, and cultural events and values, many of which have become customary to observe in the United States. Nearly 17% of Sacramento City Unified School District student population is of Asian descent. The celebration of the Lunar New Year is an occasion of reflection, cultural inclusivity, and thanksgiving. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Sacramento City Unified Board of Education does hereby offer its best wishes and hand in solidarity to all its students, staff, and constituents who observe the Lunar New Year. And be it resolved that the Sacramento City Unified Board of Education encourages students, staff, and constituents to join any number of Lunar New Year celebrations organized throughout our region. And with that, Madam President, I would move for the approval of resolution number 2986, please.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any stayed? And our student preferential vote. Great. Thank you. Motion
She's
carries.
part of our 17%. And so we have nobody here today to receive these resolutions, but I will be delivering them to their annual Lunar New Year celebrations over the next couple weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Wu. Item 8.0, public comment. Before public comment this evening, Superintendent Aguilar and myself, on behalf of the board, will be reading statements in light of recent tragic events. Superintendent Aguilar?
I want to thank everyone who's here today on the expectation that we are going to hear public comments on the incident that occurred this week at McClatchy High School. And President Ryan will speak on the tragic incident from yesterday as well as on this item. As I mentioned in my video statement over the weekend and made very clear, no student should ever be made to feel that their race has anything to do with their ability to succeed, especially given that it's 2018. With that said, I want to share what steps the district is taking around this issue. First, I want to remind everyone that there is an investigation taking place right now, and that investigation needs to run its course. I appreciate the community's patience, as difficult as it may be, to allow us to conduct a thorough investigation and let due process run its course so that we can absolutely be certain of the facts before we take action. I want to once again reiterate how important it is for me to complete a thorough review of our specialty programs throughout the district, and I've said that it's going to be on 3 different levels. The first one is whether or not we've done everything that we can to ensure that the pool of applicants to each of our specialty programs reflects the diversity of this district. Number 2, whether or not we've done everything that we can to ensure that the selection process is both fair and objective. And whether or not we've done everything necessary to ensure that we've created a climate where all students feel welcome in our specialty programs. We're actively aggregating and disaggregating data around each of these areas, and I am very excited about being able to share what this thorough assessment reveals. We're also working to ensure that our youth at McClatchy and elsewhere have the opportunity to express their feelings on this issue and propose steps to us that we should consider to further support their academic and social emotional well-being. This work is being led by our Youth Development Department as well as other community-based organizations such as Californians for Justice and others. Finally, I think that the same opportunity needs to be afforded to our community. Mayor Steinberg and I have been in touch with one another, and yet again, he's expressed his commitment to build a strong school-city partnership, and I'm very grateful that he shares the view that issues such as these go well beyond the walls of our school and our district. Next Wednesday, February 21st, we will be holding a forum at McClatchy High. We don't have all of the details yet, but we will be sure to share that with everyone, in which we want to give our youth and our community an opportunity to express themselves on these important issues. And I'm certain that if we work together constructively and we embrace open dialogue and communication around these issues, we will come out of this stronger as a district. So thank you again, President Ryan.
Thank you, Superintendent Aguilar. I want to begin by thanking the many individuals, community members, and families in Sacramento City Unified School District that have reached out to myself and board members expressing your concern, outrage, and desire to be part of the solution moving forward. Many of you asked me how I was doing as I was entering. In fact, Alex Visaya told me the world continues to turn. But I have said that this has been a difficult week. I am emotionally and physically drained. Like many of my colleagues, I wept with the passing of another tragic school shooting and pictured kissing my own sweet children goodbye for the last time. It's almost too much to bear, and it underscores a shocking reality that mass shootings are becoming more prevalent. As parents, educators, and elected leaders, our #1 responsibility is to keep our children safe. I might add, in a space free from hate and intolerance. Unfortunately, this past week has also been marred by more than just this senseless act of violence. It has been touched by racism that has caused an entire community to question just how it occurred. Our board and our superintendent are fully committed to breaking the cycles of inequity. We have said consistently, access, equity, and social justice are more than just words. But do not doubt that this is bigger than the act of a student, a teacher, a family, an administrator, or a district. This is emblematic of divisive rhetoric at a national level that is fueling the flames of hate. And the reality that at a local level, a Black and brown community that has felt marginalized for far too long. How we lean into this teachable moment is everything. We need our community to demand that we work to overhaul the system, as Superintendent Aguilar talked about, so that it meets the needs of all students, students like my own children who are Black and Latino and who face challenges day in, day out, and not just serve the lucky few. Together, we must have the courage to act while committing to healing. Our board understands that we don't have the luxury of time and that our children are depending upon our urgent action now. So I want to thank everyone once again for your willingness to be part of the solution moving forward and for the desire that you have expressed to demand that we can and will do more. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to public comment.
We have 11 public comments. If you could line up in order, please. David Fisher, Tony Brooks, Omar Butler and Thomas Munoz, D.T. Martin, Renee Webster Hawkins, William Solomon, Judy Moneymaker, Juan Verdin, Adam Pacheco, Zach Neff, Janicia Rowland, and Daryl Roberts.
Good evening. I'm David Fisher, President of the Sacramento City Teachers Association. The brief time that I have tonight, I just want to talk about 3 issues, 2 of them national in scope, 1 more local, but with national implications. First, following up on the last board meeting, yesterday I had the opportunity to represent the 325,000 members of CTA, of California Teachers Association, as we stood together with Attorney General Xavier Becerra and Mayor Steinberg to applaud the passage of AB 1227, the Human Trafficking Prevention and Education Act, introduced by Assembly Member Rob Bonta. California is now the first state to adopt human trafficking training for teachers and students. This law provides vital information to arm students and instructors with the tools to combat human trafficking. Secondly, all of us at a CTA, like all of you have just expressed, are deplore and deeply saddened, of course, by yet another school shooting, 18th school shooting in 2018. Thoughts and prayers, they're great, but they're not enough. I know we probably all had similar thoughts, dropping our kids off at school today or watching my son walk across the street, thoughts that we won't normally have to have, but appreciate you sharing that. But we're proud that our district is leading the way in fighting for Dreamers, for example, by becoming one of the first in the nation to become a safe haven school district. Let's carry Safe Haven to its next logical step and include safety from the threat of gun violence. We urge our district to take all the appropriate steps, including standing up as a public advocate to turn the tide of our gun culture and to ensure that our schools are truly safe and safe environments of learning. Finally, and closer to home, we are also obviously concerned about the issues that have engulfed McClatchy in the media in the last recent days. Although I'm somewhat heartened by an editorial I just read by a senior at McClatchy, it just came out today, very well thought out, and I think that you should take time to read it. That being said, we've been raising climate issues at McClatchy since at least February of 2016. And as you know, many of these issues will be part of an expedited arbitration the district has agreed to participate in. With the Superintendent Aguilar now at the helm and the confidence we have in his willingness to get to the root of the issues, we look forward for a comprehensive intervention at McClatchy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tony Brooks, and my daughter goes to McClatchy, and she implored me to actually come and read an essay or a response to what had happened last week. So I'll start with that. My daughter informed me today, February 7, 2018, that she discovered a sophomore student at her school wrote an essay that supplemented a science project. The hypothesis of the essay is this: if the average IQ of blacks, Southeast Asians, Hispanics are lower than the average IQs of non-Hispanics, whites, and Northeast Asians, then the racial disproportionality of HISP is justified. HISP is an acronym for Humanity International Studies Program. Typically, only a select few are selected or chosen for this program. I refuse to provide excerpts from that essay because it deserves the least amount of visibility as possible, and to do so would help promote vile and hateful and ignorant thinking. There are people at all levels that are culpable, the parent and the student. Teachers overseeing the science project essay, in the vetting, the administrative staff. In trying to make sense of this incident, I had to ask myself, what would make a school faculty member knowingly want to perpetuate a nefarious and damaging lie about any race of people? After doing research, I really believe that this incident is just the tip of the iceberg. Could it be that the school and the school district at large are trying to justify something that is unjust and pernicious? Again, what was the vetting process of the faculty in selecting and approving this racist dogma as truth? This essay was made public at a science fair on full display for public consumption. I fault the school staff for allowing this to be a reflection and representation of McClatchy High School. Could it be that the public school systems are surreptitiously circumventing affirmative action by allowing schools to implement advanced skilled curriculums only allow certain groups of people to take advantage of that private school education without the cost associated?
If you can please wrap up your comments.
Okay. As I'm reading and typing, I'm having a few epiphanies and questions. Is the concept of tracking another manifestation of segregating students of color from whites and Asians? What criteria is the school using to accept students into these more advanced programs? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to remind our next items of public comment, if you can please keep your comments to 2 minutes. I've been letting people run a bit over, but we need to stay at 2 minutes to allow for all 13 public comments.
But we'll keep that in mind. My name is Omar Butler. I am the Regional Executive Director for College Track. College Track is a college access and completion program that works with students from 8th grade until college completion. And our program, particularly in light of what's on the agenda tonight, we were started with the premise that opportunity is not evenly distributed, but ability is. And so we are celebrating our 20th anniversary this year, and there's a lot to celebrate that we want to share with you guys and hope that we can continue to support your efforts around equity, social justice, and equality.
So good evening, my name is Thomas Munoz, and I have the privilege of leading the work here in Sacramento for the past 4 years. As I previously mentioned, we launched in 2014, and over the last 4 years, we've grown our program to serve over 200 students here in the local community. I'm proud to say that over 90% of them will be the first in their family to go and earn a 4-year college degree. Really exciting for us here in Sacramento is that we're really poised to enter our second phase of growth. And what I mean by that is, given our comprehensive 10-year model, we'll begin for the first year to have students that will be in college, as well as our ability to be able to serve additional students in the greater community. I feel we're well positioned to be able to do this well, given that we have a tenured staff, a track record of strong results here in Sacramento and nationally, and a national organization to leverage best practices from. I think in my last several months in my participation in the graduation task force, I've also experienced an increased commitment to student outcomes, to using data in the best ways possible, and intentional partnership from the district. And it is my hope that going forward, there is an opportunity for us to be able to work more closely with the work that is being done here. I'd like to bring one of our students into the room. So Omar will hold that for us. This is one of our seniors. His name is Ronald. And I think Ronald is a testament to the power of a program like ours. Ronald entered our program 4 years ago as an 8th grader. He was a C student who really was unsure of what his future would hold. Ronald is poised to graduate high school in just a few months. He already has 9 college acceptances with many more on the horizon. And we are hopeful that in the months to come, we can explore a partnership with you all. We've left information here for you to learn more about our program, and I invite you all personally to visit us at our site and to learn more. Thank you very much.
And I will say we're proud to have you in our backyard in Oak Park, and I encourage you all to visit College Track. For those of you who have comments that go over 2 minutes and have them written, we also want to give you the opportunity to submit those written comments. So for the parent that so eloquently expressed his daughter's concerns, if he would like to submit that written statement as well, we'll make sure that that gets out to all of the board members. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is D.T. Martin. I am a first-year teacher at McClatchy High School. Prior to that, I am a Marine. I am a 35-year law enforcement officer here, 30 years in Sacramento. And I am also shocked and dismayed when I hear the things that have occurred or what I've personally seen on campus with the incident involving the IQ test, as I refer to it as. This is a program that quite frankly, resembles what the student wrote about. So I can't say I am surprised at the outcome of what the student put. The program has been allowed to grow to that extent, to where it has limited the number of minorities, African Americans, into the program. At this point in time, when you check with the community at large, in the African American community, that's a program that does not say welcome. There's not a teacher in that program that indicates or looks like what I look like, or over me. There's not anything there that says, welcome to anyone except, that demographics that they allow in there. The other thing too is the teachers or one of the faculty, that teaches the program also refers to the principal, in a derogatory term when they refer to him as a colored people, refer to another principal, and this principal is a slave and master. And this is the climate that these students go into with this program. So I'm not surprised that this is what comes out of it. And until we change that and do something different, and rebrand what the HIS program is supposed to be using taxpayers' dollars, then we need to, make that change. And again, when you go into school site council or shared decision-making, I hear all these things about, what's wrong with McClatchy and how McClatchy needs to change, and these things need to be done. But for years, nobody has said anything about, this program and the fact that it doesn't serve, us.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Renee Webster Hawkins, and I'm here both on my own behalf as well as the many members of the Community Advisory Committee that couldn't be here tonight. As a mother of an African American and Asian Pacific Islander, I am horrified, as I know you all are, at the overtly racist material styled as a science project that was posted and allowed to remain on display at CK McClatchy. And I appreciate your dedicated intention to examine the issue, the investigation, as well as the policies and procedures that might have enabled this. But also, the CAC asks that the board demonstrate its commitment to firm and personal accountability. I'm an administrator of a state agency, and I can assure you that if that material was posted in the hallway of my workplace that attempted, say, to justify a disproportionate number of white men in upper management based on an online intelligence test, and I allowed to remain it hanging for a couple of days, whether I knew it was there, I'd be fired, and I would deserve to be fired. Because it discriminates based on race, and more importantly, it creates a hostile environment and is harmful to the psychological well-being of every person in that workplace. And it should be no different in a public school. The last I checked, the schools are covered by the Jesse Undra Civil Rights Act. In fact, the standard should be heightened. Parents send their children to school expecting them to be safeguarded from harm. And you committed to that when you passed the Safe Haven School District resolution in December 2016. You said students cannot learn in an environment of fear. By unanimously passing the Safe Haven School District resolution, this district made a strong statement, you said, in our power to protect all students, irrespective of race, ethnicity, religious beliefs, sexual preference, or immigration status. And what does that mean if you don't immediately remove the adults responsible for this travesty from their positions? And what happened at McClatchy is evidence of a wide and deep culture of exclusion within the district. As a parent of a child with a learning disability, I gravely note that the Safe Haven School District proclamation fails to acknowledge any protections of students with disabilities, and the CAC asks that you remediate that immediately and amend the resolution.
Thank you, Renee. If you can wrap up your comments.
I will. Thank you very much. We just simply ask that you be the same strong leaders and be daring enough to commit the zealous attention that you've paid to other matters and see this through to both the moral and the proper end that seriously protects every student. Because otherwise, how can you convince me that my boys are safe in your schools? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Juan Carlos Verdeen. On behalf here of, I'm coming on behalf of Brown Issues and also the Parent Center at CK McClatchy. I'm outraged of the things that accusations that were made at this science project, and just kind of want to say, like, I understand that there's a lot of things going on, a lot of steps being, and a lot of measures being taken, but really, like, you guys have a backdrop that says, hey, safe haven for our students, but yet like there's zones like the Parent Center at McClatchy that offer services for Latino students, but are constantly being in threat of being defunded. So how can we actually assure our students that we do create a safe haven for our individuals, such as Latino students in McClatchy? Being 39% of the population at the school, it's a shame. It's a shame that this occurred.
Thank you.
It's an honor to address the board. My name is William Solomon. I only have 3 questions for the board, but before I ask those questions, I want to give you some background. On January 23rd of this year, a Caucasian student during my son's PE class approached him and blurted out, "Nigger, do 50 push-ups," in my son's direction. My son was the only African-American student in the area. My son was not a friend to this child and barely knew him. My son responded by saying, "I know you're not talking to me." My son is a 7th grader at Sutter Middle School. I notified the principal, and she spoke to both my son and the other student the following day. No disciplinary action was taken against the student. On the following day, there were 2 other incidents in which my son heard and was impacted by Caucasian students on campus using the racial slur "nigger" during class. So this was the following day after the first event. My son and I both verbally notified the principal immediately. Today, I asked the principal for a follow-up on the subsequent harassment incidents, as I have yet to receive any follow-up. I reviewed the district's bullying harassment procedures, including a memo dated November 14, 2017, reminding all site administrators of their duties to investigate and document any claims of student harassment and discrimination. Highlights of that memo state, investigations must be documented regardless of whether it's an informal complaint or a formal one. Complainant must be offered the opportunity to submit a formal uniform complaint or a Title IX complaint through the Student Hearing and Placement Department. Another highlight says reports of the investigation findings and resolutions must be provided to the victim and the alleged perpetrator. It also stated that the written resolution must include steps that will be taken to follow up and ensure that any harassment has ceased and has been appropriately remedied. It also states that these duties exist whether or not a student received discipline. These procedures must be followed regardless of whether or not a student receives a suspension or harassment. That was in the memo. So my questions are these, there's only 3. Is there a clear and concise policy outlining the actions to be taken by school administrators and teachers when the racial harassment is observed? How does the district ensure that racially charged incidents are investigated and disciplined uniformly across all schools? And has the board considered tracking racially motivated incidents to gauge the level of civil unrest in the schools? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Can I get the name of the school that you're referencing in these incidents?
John Sutter.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Good afternoon, board. My name is Adam Pacheco. As a senior in McClatchy's HISP program, I, like many others, have noticed a lack of ethnic diversity in the program. As an editor of McClatchy's independent newspaper, The Prospector, I have noticed recent media coverage of the issue and its one-sided approach. The lack of ethnic diversity in McClatchy's HISP program has long been acknowledged by and a cause for concern for the students and teachers of HISP, but to blame the program itself for the disproportionality implies the use of a racially biased selection process in HISP admissions. This is not the case. Several steps have been taken to ensure that all students have equal chances of acceptance, including a merit-based colorblind application and the use of a randomized lottery system. While some criticize the HISP program for its lack of diversity, many fail to recognize the lack of diversity in the applicant pool. McClatchy's main tributary schools are Sutter and Cal, meaning the students at these schools are more likely to have heard about the program than the students from outside the East Sac and Land Park neighborhoods. In order to address the root problem and diversify the program's applicant pool, steps must be taken to ensure that information about HISP is made available to students across the district, especially those in low-income and minority communities. In recent years, accelerated programs like HISP have not been allowed to advertise to middle schools as to avoid the risk of an uneven distribution of academically gifted students. In doing so, the program has been made less accessible to these children in the communities. The only way to ensure a more diverse applicant pool is to allow for programs like HISP to advertise to middle schools so that we can encourage students from all communities to apply. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, board members. My name is Zachary Neff. I'm a senior in the HISP program at McClatchy. First, I would like to support and second my classmate Adam's statements, but would like to make some of my own in regards to what the latest incident at my school means to the majority of us students. The phenomenon of racial adversity and disadvantage is nothing new. Since the conception of our country, minorities have been handed an uneven playing field to work with towards excellence. As such, the vast discrepancy in the racial makeup of HISP is only a small part of a systemic and complex issue that plagues our nation. That issue just so happened to touch down in our community, and as Jay Hansen said to our student government class earlier today, it allows an opportunity for discussion. While it is good, simply reviewing the selection process of magnet programs in high school is not enough. While the recent articles in the newspapers have pointed fingers at our school and program, I like to see a discussion around what the district can do to help improve the culture of inclusivity earlier on in a student's education. Also, primary schools need a base of equity and access that allows the possibility of all students to enter and thrive in a rigorous high school program later on in their career. Lastly, I'd like the board to know that our student body is fervent in aiding the discussion around this topic and has reached out to other school student bodies to join our efforts in combating the idea that race should play a factor in a student's ability to succeed. While this incident has put a scratch on our emotions of our community and is no reflection of McClatchy's values, I'm confident that our district, schools, and students will heal over this wound with amplified resistance to the effects of prejudice and unequal access. Happy Black History Month.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Janicia Rowland. I'm here on behalf of my daughter. My child attends currently at Capital City School. I'm coming to the board for solutions this evening. During my child's attendance at Isidore Cohen, at the beginning of the school year, I was a volunteer. I was a part of the PTO and very involved in school activities. During the beginning of the school year, my daughter was being bullied by staff. I'm here today for solutions as to how parents can do what we are being asked when being pushed out and blindsided by staff. My daughter has been emotionally distraught on a daily basis when she attended Isidore Cohen, as well as she was embarrassed in front of the school staff during a school assembly. I have gone through the chain of command, which resulted in me removing my daughter from an unsafe environment due to the persistence of being bullied and receiving lack of support from staff at the school and at the district level. I'm here today to gain understanding, receive support, and gain a resolution in regards to how I, as a parent, can support our vision of parent involvement when I feel as a parent I am being hindered, unsupported, and silenced.
Thank you so much. If we can have you step to the left, we want to make sure that our board special assistant gives you his card, and it looks like board member
Ms. Rowland, I'm gonna come
Pritchett
down and speak
also
with
is
you as
going to
well.
personally give you her card. Okay, thank you. And I was made aware that there are a few people in line who have not filled out public comment cards. So if you have not filled out a public comment card and wish to speak tonight, please do. We have 2 minutes per person for public comment.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Angie Sutherland. I'm a parent, and I've given you some handouts from the CAC about some of our upcoming events. I wanted to speak, though, tonight as a parent and express how distressed I am with the recent news in the district about the science project. But I do want to say that I don't think it's an isolated incident to one school and one program. Discrimination is happening in all of our schools. It's not unique. I hope that you are, as leaders, looking into all the programs, all the schools, and all the different settings. Students are discriminating against other students, not just about race, although that is major, however, also about disability, and it feels like not enough is being done to intervene. I can really identify with the parent who spoke, both parents, about we have these district policies to stop bullying and harassment, and they're not being followed. And it's really discouraging to where, why should we even stay in this school district if our kids are going to be abused? Students are ganging up on each other and calling each other derogatory names and excluding them. And when this happens, they need to intervene. Somebody needs to be watching, and somebody needs to do something about this. And also, If students who are doing this type of thing are not being given interventions and then they're being expelled or suspended, that isn't helping anything. It's just creating a pipeline to prison and creating mental health issues. We saw what happened in Florida with the student who was expelled and came back. We don't need that. So what I'm hearing and seeing in this district over the last several years, I'm even more fearful for our children's future if we don't do something. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie.
Hi, I'm Janice Luzak. I'm the president of the Sacramento chapter of the Japanese American Citizens League, and I'm here to talk, like so many other people, about the McClatchy student who did the science project. Putting aside the lack of understanding about real scientific protocols and procedures used in research, there's the issue of how this project was allowed to advance, in spite of multiple reviews by department faculty. I would hope someone would have recognized that the student's project would be part of a public display and that it would likely result in controversy. I would hope that someone would have counseled the student on the likely repercussions of doing this project. Someone should have said, this is not scientific research. I also question how the project was allowed to get as far as it did. Did any of the teachers who reviewed his project question whether it would be harmful to other students at McClatchy? The Sacramento Bee noted that much of the students' resource materials were out of date or came from questionable sources. Did any teacher recommend additional research into current and better supported data? Some students reported that the students previously used racist language. That kind of insensitivity should not be allowed on a school campus and should have been reported to school administration with appropriate repercussions. The students who were targeted are likely to feel demeaned and isolated. That kind of language causes division and distrust that can take years to heal from. I thank Superintendent Aguilar and the board for all that you're doing to increase outreach to students to get into the HISP programs. Combined with your commitment to improving equity, access, and social justice, this is a big step in solving issues involving race, social class, and access to higher education resources.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Judy Moneymaker, and we represent Eastland School. We've submitted an intent for letter of petition intent and petitioner assurances and disclosures tonight. It is intended that the petition and appendices will be submitted on the morning of March 1st, 2018.
Thank you. Mr. Roberts.
Madam President, Superintendent Aguilar, members of the boards, Darrell Roberts, for this purpose, a citizen of Sacramento, but as you know me as a provider for services in the Roberts Family Development Center. I think part of what you all should ask yourself is why there are not more African-American parents and community leaders in the audience angry about what occurred in McClatchy. Unfortunately, my response for many of them is, it's going to continue. They don't expect anything to change, Superintendent. So I'm looking forward to your solutions. I'm going to read something that came to us. We have several questions this evening. Besides the questions that student, parents, and community members are asking about how a science project that is racist to the core can make it through the review process and onto the project display floor, the questions that we must ask are about how this climate of racial intolerance can exist in one of the most diverse school districts in the nation. How could it be that a district that has an African-American population of almost 17%, which is about equal to the Asian and white student populations, could have such a low percentage of students in the HISP program? How could it be that in this diverse district that African-American students are dropping out of high school at a rate of 13% compared to their Asian peers whose rate is 4.5%? How is that the percentage of African-American students graduating have met the AG requirements is only 40% compared to their Asian peers again, whose rate is 62%? The question is, do we believe in all students, all kids, or just some? If the answer is all, what are we going to do about it, Superintendent, members of the board? We propose an outside independent audit of African-American student achievement and access to quality programming, and we stand prepared to work with you. Although I stand here tonight, alone, I'm not alone in this. There are others who have called you. There's others who have sent messages to you. There are others who will formally approach you. It's time that we begin really looking at what's the status of African American students in our district, and we should ask the question why.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. It appears we have one last submission.
Hello, my name is Phoebe Austin, and my daughter is a freshman at McClatchy. And I think I just wanted to come tonight to say that I feel like these students are hopeful and that they can see a resolution. I mean, she told me that they discussed the issue of the science project. In one of her classes in particular, it was her molecular biology class, where they talked about it. And her teacher really reinforced that it wasn't a very scientifically addressed project. And she said that students do know who the boy is who did this. They don't know if he's been coming to school or not, but they know who he is. It's an easy topic for her to discuss, and I don't know if it's because she looks like me. She's, a white girl. But I just have this feeling that she and her peers are very open to doing the right thing and recognize how students should be treated and how they should treat each other. There's an openness, I think, to this age group. My daughter went to McClatchy, my middle daughter, and we walked into the school, and there were these two girls holding hands. I'm like, baby, look, those two girls are holding hands. That's so great. They can be who they are. And she's like, oh my God, Mom, that's disgusting. That's too much PDA, is what she said. Just totally open to being who you are and accepting each other. So I recognize that this is a huge issue, and I think that there are times when we have to put a lot of faith in our students in finding the solutions after recognizing the problems, and we have to listen to their approach. So my point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to thank all of the community members and parents who came out to express their concerns, pain, and desire to see some real work moving forward. We're going to move to item 9.1, Board Workshop Strategic Plan and Other Initiatives, Graduation and A through G Update. Dr. Taylor and Mr. Harris.
So good evening, Board President Ryan, members of the board, Superintendent Aguilar. My name is Iris Taylor. I'm the Chief Academic Officer, and I'm joined tonight by Vincent Harris, our Chief Accountability and Improvement Officer, and Garrett Kirkland, a principal from Hiram Johnson High School. And we're here to share with you updates on this project that has been underway since the beginning of the school year to impact our students who are on track for graduation in A through G. So to start us off, we first want to share with you again our core value statement. I think this is very apropos given recent events and the public comment that's been made. But our core value statement speaks to the fact that we recognize that the system is inequitable by design. And by that we mean that to change the outcomes we're getting, particularly the inequitable outcomes we see, we must first assess what in the system, in the way the system is currently designed, is resulting in the outcomes. That's how we create opportunities for our students to learn, grow, and reach their greatness. Our equity, access, and social justice guiding principle serves as a North Star to what we're seeking to achieve. We want all of our students to have an equal opportunity to graduate from Sac City Unified with the greatest number of post-secondary choices from the widest array of options. So here we highlight how we have been defining equity, access, and social justice. And I'd like to just draw your attention to that first bullet because it's most relevant, I think, to what we're going to share with you tonight. And that's the idea that we must really use data and display data in real time so that it draws and triggers a moral call to action. And that those actions are not dependent on our parents, our students' ability to navigate the system, but that it's embedded in the way that we do business. So if you recall, our work around graduation in A through G was really prompted by this editorial headline, which called out that Sac City's graduation rates were going down when graduation rates across the region and the state actually were increasing. We've shared this data with you in the past as well, which outlines, to date, the graduation data that we have, showing that Sac City's graduation rates have been pretty flat over the past 5 years for which data has been available. Tonight, we're going to share with you just a key strategy that since Superintendent Aguilar has come to the district, has really prompted us to engage in different practices in how we seek to impact our graduation rates. And one of those is this idea of developing standard work processes and procedures. This allows us to really take a close look at what in the way that we're working is either contributing to outcomes and allow us to make changes in real time to those processes. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Harris, who's going to share with you more explanation about what the processes are.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. In terms of the processes, and we've shared these before in terms of the business processes, and the goal tonight isn't to necessarily walk you through them as much as just to give you a sense of, they provide a standard view of how we do work together within the system. And it's really important to note that this work's been ongoing. This is the work of our counselors. They've been doing it, of course, as a part of their jobs for years. What the standard work processes are meant to do is really communicate through the whole system the important work that's being done. And so the example you have in front of you speaks to the work we talked about previously that took place just as we were at the start of school in August. This is the counselor schedule review process. And so you just get a sense of, as Dr. Taylor shared, one of the theories of action as it relates to improvement science, there really is this notion of once you make things clear, even though it is a complex process, it restores a sense of reliability that whatever school you're at, whatever setting you're in, the same process can be done with fidelity again and again. And as it relates to this work, we actually introduced this business process, of course, earlier in the fall as well, in terms of credit recovery and how important it is. And again, the business process kind of exemplar you see here is meant to just show you in more concrete terms how these steps, again, reflect and honor the work that our counseling teams are doing with students year after year to ensure reliability and consistency across sites. And then ultimately, all these business processes are meant to help us better understand measurable outcomes. And so we do the business processes, but part of that requires us to monitor them to ensure that we get the outcomes we expect. And so we have several articulated measures of success that are geared towards helping us understand exactly what are the outcomes we want to see on behalf of our students. And then ultimately, I apologize, somehow the data in this slide, I'm sorry, I jumped a little, I apologize for that. But the good news is, if we come back to these slides real quick, though the data is not there explicitly, as you look at it, and of course we've shown this before in terms of tracking the set of students from August, where we've seen a growth and improvement in terms of seeing more students become on track as we've tracked these students through the course of the school year, and just at the end of the first semester, we've seen the same trend and pattern continue. Of course, we'll include the actual data points in board communication to you, but we've seen the same positive trend that the numbers of students who are on track have increased. And so I'll just read explicitly here because it is an important factoid to share with our public as well. And so, for example, we had 362 students who've completed, 12th grade students who've completed one or more credit recovery course, and through their efforts, we've seen an increase of that population going from 5% on track to 18% on track, or 19 students to 66 students. And so that's where you see the real positive outcomes of business processes. And then also, as we think overall, students on track, particularly with A through G status, going from, or increasing the number of the pool of students who are on track Back in August, that number was at about 32% or 905 students. And now, as of the end of the first semester, we now see that number at 44% or about 1,200 students. And so again, the real positive outcome is working, our council is working with students to get more of our students on track and of course, get more students to fulfill the promise that we know they have, that we've been speaking about tonight. So with that, we're actually going to shift gears a little bit and allow Principal Kirkland to give you a sense of how this lands at sites. And he'll talk a little bit about the work at Hiram Johnson.
Thank you. Good evening. So for us, this started with 2 questions. What would we do if the line to our front office was filled with our parents asking what we were doing? And when we realized that we had to work as the proxy for the parents that are not able to line up at our front office, that was where we mobilized our efforts first. Second was a question. I have an 11th grade daughter. And we asked our counselors who are heading up this work, if you walk to the counseling station and you said, my kid's in 11th grade and I want to find out about going to college, and they said, you can line up here and I'll tell you some anecdotes and some timelines and I'll give you a brochure. Or you can line up over here and we'll give you all the same anecdotes, timelines, and brochures. But then we'll put you in a systematic approach where we monitor, follow up, check, call you, and make sure we prescribe a path forward. What line would you get in? And we have yet to find anyone who wants to go to just a simple anecdote line. Everyone says they want the line where they prescribe the path forward to get into college successfully. So once we owned that we had to adopt a more proactive, prescriptive method. This has been about identifying what our real work is and our successes. So every week, the counselors and I meet with another assistant principal, and we look at what are the numbers of students either for A to G credit recovery or getting them registered for the FAFSA, completing the FAFSA, and we monitor students by students. And it got to the point where our counseling team decided that the most effective way was not even by the breakups of certain either grade levels or last names, but we had 60 seats for credit recovery, and we had 5 counselors. So independent of grade, those 5 counselors each adopted 12 of those seats. And so every week I ask the counselors, how much progress have we made on the 12 seats you monitor? And what are you doing to push them forward? And every week we learn a little bit more of what we can do better. And so as we examine the data, we look to tweak, and we look to hone, and we look to perfect. But it's about the consistent sharing of data and results that we identify, tweak, and move forward.
Thank you.
Wrapping up, we have several lessons learned, but really the theme of the lessons learned center around communication, really effectively sharing practices at scale across the system, and then also recognizing that with sharing the practices, there's an importance of a professional development, professional learning for all of our team members. And then as we look at measuring the outcomes, it's the fidelity of that work as well in terms of making sure we're doing a good job of collecting the data and the reliability of that data. And next steps really center around the notion of just digging deeper, finalizing a graduation matrix that we're already testing this school year, which will allow us, again, to, in real time, as Dr. Taylor mentioned, as we apply the equity, access, and social justice guiding principle, allows us in real time to see where students are in terms of their pathway to graduation. And then really being intentional about exposing our students to more and more opportunities, much like the things the board will see in the consent item today in terms of ensuring that they have exposure to those things that we know help them become college and career ready. And then, of course, just continuing our own internal work of streamlining supports because we know that's most important. And so with that, I'll end the presentation.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to take public comment.
We have 2 public comments, Renee Webster Hawkins and Thomas Munoz. If Mr. Munoz would like to go first, go right ahead.
Hello, Renee Webster Hawkins, and here on behalf of the Community Advisory Committee. We're here to comment that the graduation plan, we urge you to more robustly address the needs of students with disabilities in the graduation plan. It is not mentioned, they're not mentioned at all in the 92-slide presentation that was offered to kick off this initiative. The National Center for Learning Disabilities states that 85% of students with disabilities have average or above average cognitive abilities, and therefore we should be seeing graduation numbers of students with disabilities in that range. And yet, as the dashboard shows, here in this district, last year, only 57.7% of students with disabilities graduated, and that was down significantly from the year prior, 6%. This presentation cites an April 2017 article to help identify some of the issues here in the district, but we also note that in November 2017, when the dashboard was updated, both the dashboard, CDE, the California Centers for Educational Excellence, and EdSource collectively identified this district as among the 8th worst district in the states for its achievement of students based largely on the low graduation rate and the failure to address and support students with disabilities. And so we would urge you, as this effort moves on, I know that Angel Garcia from our committee is serving on the graduation initiative. More of us will join if you need our help. But the needs of special education students and students with disabilities who aren't special ed students be addressed. And we have a four-prong approach, that the plan include evidence-based instruction for students with disabilities, that the plan include accommodations for students with disabilities that are proven to support these kids, that the plan includes self-advocacy and empowerment curriculum, which has been shown to pay itself over and over in dividends to help these kids empower themselves, and also a commitment at the high school level that every student with a disability is actively engaged by their advisors and the case managers overseeing their IEPs for transition planning. It's a missing piece here, and again, we commit to work with you so that we can incorporate those elements in the plan. But we believe that if this plan robustly addressed the needs of these students, your graduation rate will significantly uptick, and the students will benefit as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Renee.
Good evening once again. My comments will be brief. First of all, I just wanted to say that it's refreshing to see the district's commitment to examining the A through G completion rates and also a renewed focus on making sure that underrepresented students are making progress in in completing those requirements at a higher rate and positioning themselves for higher education. Earlier, I know we were kind of cut short by time, but I brought Ron into the room. I would like to just highlight that Ron's success is indicative of others in our program. 100% of our students come from groups that are historically underrepresented in higher education. I'm proud to say that 100% of our senior class has completed the A through G course requirements. 94% of them are also eligible for admission into a CSU or a UC in the system in the state of California. And that we are here as partners, very deeply committed to Sacramento and to our students, and we are acting with a sense of urgency as well. And it's our sincere hope that in the months to come, we will be partners going into the 18-19 school year. Thank you once again for your consideration.
Thank you very much. This time, we're going to take comments and questions from the board. Our first question comes from Board Member Pritchett.
Thank you, President Ryan. I just first wanted to applaud the efforts of the staff. This is a breath of fresh air, I'm going to say. And Principal Kirkland, I knew there was a reason you became principal at Hiram Johnson. If this is the approach that we're taking at all of our high schools, this is a job well done, for sure. I would like to have a report, like a BC that could go out to the board to let us know, like, is this what Mr. Kirkland had reported? Are each of our high schools doing the same? So my questions are really based around credit recovery. Since I came on this board, I've been kind of pushing recovery, and I know that this is not a be-all, end-all for our students. But my question is really, do we have enough resources for credit recovery? Because I know Mr. Kirkland said he has 60 seats. I'm assuming all of those 60 seats are taken, and I'm sure that there are more students that need credit recovery that there aren't enough seats for. So what do we need to do as a board to be able to give resources to our school sites to be able to get more students into credit recovery? And then lastly, I would like to have a report back, you don't have to give us now, of just how many students at each of our high schools are in credit recovery, and how many licenses, I guess, or how many seats do we have available?
Thank you, Board Member Pritchett. And my understanding is that this effort to identify off-track students included all of our high schools within Sac City Unified, correct? Okay. And we have a question and comment from Board Member Hanson.
Thank you, President Ryan. My question is, I thought it was interesting when you mentioned, having the two lines, which parent and student would choose, because obviously that's a good, clear example. So my question is, what are we doing to communicate this work, or what's the game plan going forward to teach parents and students that this is, how we're conducting our business now at Sac City, because it is something new and exciting and something they should be, wanting to participate in and be able to track their students if the student and the parents want to be on the college track, if that's what they're choosing to do. Are we doing some kind of a marketing program or educational program or something to get the word out to let our families know about this? Or is this something that, we can hear about maybe in the next few weeks, what the program is of how we're going to spread the communication and let people know about this? So,
Thank you, Board Member Hanson. Do we have any other comments or questions from board members? Dr. Taylor, Mr. Harris, did you want to respond to any of these items at this time? Or are you just taking note of the questions for future response?
We're taking note of the questions for future response.
I want to echo my colleagues' comments in commending you for your efforts. I know that I have said before that in doing community outreach and community organizing over my career, it is very rarely that I come in contact with a parent who says, I don't want my child to be on track. And more often than not, when we have our child enter a high school, we trust that they are going to be put on a path to reach their college dreams. And so this idea that we are ensuring that our students are on track and taking guesswork out of that equation is huge for me, and I look forward to us continuing to grow those numbers exponentially year to year. Thank you. We're moving on to our next item. That was for information only, no action. 9.2, Sac City Unified District Higher Education Partnership Update.
Good evening, Board President Ryan, members of the board, Superintendent Aguilar. So Mr. Harris and I are here again to just share with you an update, an exciting update on our higher education partnership. So behind this presentation is just this fundamental understanding that there is an issue with the pipeline from high school into higher education. And this picture really illustrates that issue in terms of the gaps that you see between the pipes. Those gaps representing the gap between high school into community college, as well as high school into four-year colleges, and then the gap between community colleges transitioning students into four-year colleges. Again, recognizing this as a fundamental issue within the system, that link between K-12 and higher education, Superintendent Aguilar made this just a central priority when he first came to the district. And that's a priority of forming a partnership, a data sharing agreement and partnership between the district and 4 key institutions of higher education. And this just is a signature page, just representing on December 12th, we entered into a formal agreement with these institutions to provide opportunities for data sharing. The 4 institutions that came into play are UC Davis, the University of California at Merced, Cal State University Sacramento, and the Los Rios Community College District. The partnership focuses on collecting and sharing data that will allow the district to identify challenges that prevent students from attaining high school diplomas and transitioning successfully into colleges, and for, again, colleges to understand what are the challenges students face in transitioning and completing either a 2-year or 4-year degree. And there are 3 key areas of work that this group will undertake. The first being, again, successful transitioning of our students. The second is aligning the institutions, so ensuring that there are policies and practices that allow students to smoothly go back and forth between the institutions, so allow data to freely flow so that information is being given to the district from the colleges and from the district to the colleges to inform things like course placement, if remediation needs to occur, et cetera. And then again, aligning our policies as well. So we formed these 5 work groups, and within the work groups are representatives from each of the institutions. The work groups are focused on things like information technology, and that's just ensuring that, hardware, software systems can talk to each other. Data governance, and that's making sure that the quality of the data is there, that folks have access to the data, and the data is being disseminated across the systems. Outreach and matriculation is, again, that students are receiving counseling, that they are receiving information about what it takes to transition into these institutions of higher ed. And then there's a curriculum committee that's going to look at course taking and course alignment to ensure that our students are indeed taking coursework that is preparing them to be successful in higher ed. And then finally, that a research component where we're engaged in action research projects to understand how students are transitioning through the system, or systems. Okay.
Thanks, Dr. Taylor. The next series of slides actually will be proof of concept slides for the board and public to see. This slide in front of you here gives a sense of all the steps that really go into now this notion of, you think of the traditional kind of college-going cycle as that point of application, the point at which you find out you're accepted, and then showing up on the campus that you've selected. But there's all these other important steps, and this is what this slide is meant to show, where we potentially can see students potentially not make the transition, even as they apply and are admitted. There's other steps along the way, whether that's an orientation step, certainly making sure they validate their financial aid, the submission of records. And so what's powerful about the data sharing between all of our institutions is that these data points typically are not normally shared, of course, between institutions. But for us in this unique agreement, we'll have the opportunity to really think about what are those bottleneck data points that sometimes we don't consider as incredibly important, but particularly for students who might leave the area, if we can have the opportunity to support them in supporting their housing choice, that gives us a different ability then to ensure that they will show up on their chosen campus in the fall. And so that's really the power of this data sharing agreement. And so this just gives you a cycle of the various institutions that we're with, University of California, the Cal State system, and then community college. And again, these are the potential data points that we'll have access to that aren't normally historical data points that K-12 and higher education share. And then in our system, we have the way to make our students data points visible. And so what you have here is an example, and again, we won't go through it in detail tonight, but it's another representative tool that is by student. And so for our students, as they apply to various universities in the segments, we have the ability to actually track specific milestones in that process. And so this data sharing agreement will give us more data points to include in our institution of higher learning dashboard for each individual student, so that as counselors are meeting with students, they have the ability to actually monitor how are they doing, not just in terms of where they applied or where they were accepted, but have you hit other important benchmarks in that journey to showing up on your campus? Have you taken placement exams? Have you had the opportunity to fill out completely your financial aid? And so that's really the power of having the data here to share. And then ultimately, you've seen this framework previously as we look at our priority elements within the district, but this also gives us the ability to now populate a new series of elements. And so again, as you look at these, the college-going culture really gets at the nature of how are students doing in terms of that successful transition from high school to college. College enrollment really looks at the key factors of this notion of students actually signing their statement to an intent to register, and then also looking at how they prepared in terms of remediation pool, making visibility to the summer melt rate. As I mentioned to you, there are certain steps that we know students may or may not do once they're accepted, and so looking very carefully at the summer melt rate to understand what does it mean that 100 students applied, 80 were accepted, but only in maybe another 40 signed their statement to intent, but only 20 showed up on the campus. It's understanding what happened to that 20 that signed the statement to intent to register, but didn't make it to the actual campus in that fall. And so we'll have more data points that will help us support our students in that transition. And then finally, the strength of this agreement allows us then to enter the conversations with our institutions of higher education partners and understand, are our students persisting? Are they graduating on time? And so we'll be able to really talk about, in very concrete terms, Sacramento City Unified students who end up as students at these other partner universities and be able to talk concretely about their journey of persistence. And then, as Dr. Taylor mentioned, through the work groups, we'll be able to identify potential maybe curricular roadblocks in preparation for our students that we'll be able to collaborate on and in a very real way measure a new set of outcomes. And then ultimately, we actually have another set of elements that actually get into now this notion of looking at our students at their universities. And so, one example of this is appropriate course placement. So the power of the partnership is that it's not just going to be looking at our data within K-12, but we'll actually have an opportunity to look at the higher education data and really talk about important things there. This is just one example of one indicator that speaks to this notion of the importance of appropriate course placement, because it allows us to have conversations about, well, what's on the placement exam that will support our students so that they can be in college-ready courses, college credit-bearing courses day one. And then ultimately, as we think about next steps in our journey here, we have a launch meeting on February 22nd, so we're right in the throes of making meaning of the agreement, and then that will lead us into implementing the work groups, and then actually moving into a space where we'll actually be able now to agree on our first set of data sets. And so we'll actually, in some period during the spring, be able to come back to you and talk about our first wave of data, which will lead us into a conversation of the overall implementation plan, which we're really excited about because it's a great support to our students, actually a great support to us because it expands our professional learning network with our higher institution partners and creates a different type of conversation. And with that, I'll end the presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harris. At this time, we'll take public comments and then questions from board members. Do we have any public comments over there? Elliot, can you check?
We do have one comment from Renee Webster Hawkins.
Good evening again. This is a great initiative, and it's exciting that this district is partnering with the university and the community colleges. I had an opportunity to speak with President Nelson and Mr. Phil Garcia yesterday about it. They're equally excited. A couple of points from the Community Advisory Committee. We would hope that the plan, again, would acknowledge the transition planning, both as a formal procedure that can be approved upon in the district and should be incorporated in the workflow. And the CAC would be happy to meet with the team and collaborate to see how we can help build that out. To that end, we wanted to remind everyone that on Tuesday, the CAC is hosting the Comprehensive Transition Planning for Students with Disabilities, which in large part is designed to help both parents and students, but also the educational teams that surround these students with the information they need in order to make that transition successful, for especially for the students that want to be college-bound. I wanted to share that with you. The flyer, I know Angie shared it earlier with the board, so we encourage all of you to come. In addition, would like to work with you to include that, and also really urge you to include in the data set data that reflects the percentages of students with disabilities or on IEPs as subsets of the data, so we can all better understand how they're faring in this overall process. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Renee. We have no other public comments. We're going ahead and going to take questions from board members. Board Member Hanson.
Thank you very much for that, and let me just really laud our superintendent for helping spearhead this program. I think it's really exciting and something that is going to be tremendously important for our students, and I think be a role model for other collaborations that other districts can do around the state. I would ask that we talk to our lobbyist, that we have our hired lobbyist for our school district. When I was in the legislature, they have appropriated tens of millions of dollars, literally, to community colleges to set up articulation agreements between high schools and their districts. The money was allocated to the community colleges, and that was the last anybody ever saw of it. I know that there are probably other programs that exist, and I would hope that we would be able to apply for some of that grant money, and maybe we can put our lobbyists to work identifying what those sources are. Because, I noted the $300,000 here, but that's a small amount of money to what I know is available at the statewide level. I think there's a lot of money that would be available for an innovative program like this. So I think we definitely should search that out. And I was really excited to see that we're going to be tracking our students once they get into higher education to see what their persistence is. So one, it's obviously an ability for us to check ourselves to see how well we're preparing students for this. But as we all know, the graduation rate at CSU is about 50%. So a lot of students are dropping out. And that's a waste of their time, of students who drop out. It's a waste of money for the taxpayers if students are dropping out. What can we do to make sure that students that go in there are doing it intentionally so they want to graduate and be successful? So folks aren't wasting their time, and vice versa. If they're going in there, they really do want to graduate, that we're helping them being prepared. So being able to track that information, I think, is really, really innovative and really, really helpful. So very excited about this. So thank you for an excellent job, and I'll look forward to the continuance of a really cool program.
Thank you, Board Member Hanson. Board Member Minnick.
Thank you. First, thanks for all the work on this, and thanks to the superintendent for taking the lead on this. I think that when we think about these data sharing agreements and these partnerships, we kind of think of it kind of at the administrative level, kind of the 30,000-foot level. But as the folks on the dais know, so I teach in the Los Rios Community College District, and I've been talking about this with a lot of my colleagues who also teach there, and people are excited. People hear this, and they really see the kind of impact this is going to have in making sure that the students that we see are prepared and ready, and that those transition points are smooth. I think that I wasn't sure if people would totally understand the kind of impact this could have, but folks are excited and talking about it, kind of at the ground level on campus. So I'm really excited. I'm especially thrilled that I get to, witness it on both ends of the pipeline. But I really appreciate all the work, and this is exciting. Thanks.
Thank you, Board Member Minnick. So I want to echo Board Member Minnick's excitement and the comments of Board Member Hanson. I think that sometimes it is difficult to understand the nuances of what a data sharing agreement like this means. But this is in fact something that has been receiving statewide attention, has been called historic and transformative, and I want to applaud Superintendent Aguilar's leadership and his ability to accomplish in 7 months what he said it took him 7 years to do in Fresno. To put it in perspective what this will mean, I mean, for our teachers who are here in the audience, one of the things that often happens is a high school student leaves us. The majority of those students end up at a community college, and they're asked to take an assessment test. test in which they are told 80% of the time in the Sacramento area that they are not going to be allowed into college-level math or English, despite the fact that at one of our area high schools, they had a passing grade and good indicators if you were to look at their high school transcripts. This data sharing agreement is going to allow us to flip that narrative on its head and take our students from our local high schools and place them into college-level math and English, which all of the research demonstrates that they are well equipped to succeed at. And the difference between them going directly into college-level math and English is a difference between them staying and often deciding not to show up day one for class at community college. So I'm so excited about that, and that is just one of many implications of this data sharing agreement. This idea that not only can we support transitions, but persistence, and in cases where students don't persist, be able to pinpoint where the breakages were, is beyond exciting to me in my college access and completion work, and I'm looking forward to continuing to support this partnership as it unfolds. President of Sacramento City College, Michael Gutierrez, and I met for lunch today. He was unable to be here tonight, but expressed how thrilled he is to be moving this work with President Nelson and others. And we were contacted by LA Unified School District a few weeks ago, who passed a similar resolution using our MOU as their guide. So it looks like we don't have any other board member comments at this time. Thank you so much for your work. This was just an item for information, not action. We're going to move on to item 9.3, approving AB 1200 disclosure costs for non-represented confidential employees.
Good evening, Board President Ryan, Superintendent Aguilar, members of the board, Concy McCarn, the Chief Human Resource Officer, and with me, Gerardo Castillo, the Chief Business Officer. We're here to talk to you and ask for your approval of AB 1200 disclosure of costs for non-represented and confidential employees. This group of employees includes admin assistants, analysts, auditors, specialists, classified coordinators, classified directors, superintendent's cabinet. And as we are continuously looking for ways to improve and create a pathway of career advancement through the district, on behalf of the superintendent, we want to share with you this proposed compensation increase that we think in a number of ways leads by example. To begin with, the salary compensation being proposed is 2.5% retro to January 1, 2017, 2.5 retro to July 1, 2017, and 2.7 retro to July 1, 2018, for a 7.7% increase. In addition to that, this group currently receives 75% of health benefits covered. This proposal would increase that from 75% to 100%, and additionally cover up to 50% of family, to the Kaiser family rate. This total compensation would be less than, although slightly, still less than other proposals brought forward to the board, totaling about 10.9. So we see as part of our recruitment efforts important to offer total compensation packages that are appealing to moving forward, both in the district and recruiting from outside. In addition, the vacation liability, through all of our contracts, there is an attempt to address vacation, unfunded vacation liability. Currently, there is no cap for this group. The suggestion here is to cap the amount that's allowed to be carried over. So the cap of vacation would be 15 years, not really, 15 days for each fiscal year. So meaning that they would either need to use them or be paid out for them that following July based on June balances. In and of itself, to ensure that we are not in the same position a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, is a commitment and an expectation by the superintendent to carefully monitor vacation usage by not only providing very clear, well-defined, well-articulated expectations and processes, but also to conduct regular audits to ensure that it's being used appropriately. Mr. Castillo is going to talk with you about post-benefit contributions from the group.
Thank you, Kansi. Good evening, President Ryan, members of the board, and Superintendent Aguilar. The proposal requires that for the first time ever, non-represented and confidential employees contribute towards retirement health benefits. Only those employees that were hired prior to November 15, 1996 qualify for lifetime benefits on this group. We have to make sure they're putting money aside every year to pay for these retirement benefits. This proposal now requires the non-represented and confidential employees contribute towards their health benefits. The amount paid by each employee will depend on the amount that they earn. There will be a progressive sliding scale. Those who earn more will pay more. Here is an example. What will this mean? On the first year, starting July 1, 2018, they will start from 300 to 700. By the third year, they will go from to 400 to 1,000. This will be the sliding scale. So in the third year, from 400 to 1,000. Superintendent Aguilar met with the staff met with us with the staff last week, and some of them are here behind us. We recommend approval of this proposal, and we are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. Do we have public comment?
We have one public comment from Cecile Nunley.
Good evening, members of the board, and good evening, President Ryan. I really did appreciate your comments earlier this evening with all that is going on. So thank you very much for those. I do have a question on this. It says in the agenda item that the attachment A will be available on February 15th, which is today, and I didn't see an attachment A for the public disclosure, so I'm a little confused. Maybe I missed it, but is it in the back? Because I looked for it. Okay. And the other thing, and this is one, okay, thank you. This is one that I've brought up earlier. I know that this is required per the Government Code Section 3547.5. It's in this format, which this is the format, and that's what I was wondering, because I thought this should be available 72 hours before the board meeting so that the public could review. And again, I'm just have a concern.
Cecile, thank you for bringing that to our attention. I'll have our board special assistant look into that. Thank you. Do we have any comments from board members, questions? Board Member Wu.
Thank you, President Ryan. So I have just one request. I'm going to move the adoption of this item, but as we move forward and as we start to increase the retiree benefit contribution, I'd like to see a projection, estimated projection, of how that's going to hopefully diminish our unfunded liability over time, because I think that's why we're looking forward to having greater contributions in order to help whittle down that unfunded liability. So I'd like to see over time how much that unfunded liability might be diminished, because it may necessitate continuing to take having further discussions in the future. I just don't know, again, what I don't know. So I'd like to see that in the future. And with that, this is an action item, I'm going to move the item.
Okay, before we take a vote, I do want to just thank the team for their work on this and recognize that this is a significant step in the right direction, that we are having a real and meaningful contribution towards our retirement benefits, which we know are a challenge for us in the district as we're looking to make investments in students, not just today, but for years to come. I also want to appreciate that this retirement benefit contribution is on a sliding fee scale so that our employees that make make less contribute a bit less, and those that make more actually contribute more towards that total retiree benefit. I think that that is a huge statement of leadership, and I am grateful to see that we are moving in this important direction. With that, I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. This was not an item that required a student preferential vote. We're moving on to item 10.0, adoption of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Sounds like we have multiple seconds. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, so student preferential vote.
I vote yes on all open session items.
Beautifully said. Item 11.0, business and financial information reports. Receive information, 11.1, business and financial information. Item 12.0, future board meeting dates and location. Our next board meeting will be on March 1st, 2018 at 4:30 p.m. with open session convening at 6 p.m. I want to, at this time, before we call for our student members' motion to adjourn, recognize that board member Mai Vang will be making a special statement and calling for a special ceremonial adjournment in memory of a recently passed teacher, Anthony Egan's.
Thank you, President Ryan. Before we adjourn into closed session, I want to take this opportunity to say a few words about Mr. Anthony Egan's, who we lost on January 19th. At this moment, can I have our Rosa Parks family come up here, our teachers, Mr. Sullivan, to come up to the front? As you can see, Mr. Egan's was beloved by our Rosa Parks family, our teachers, our students, our parents. His passion for teaching has touched so many lives and transformed so many at Rosa Park and in the Meadowview community. Please come up. Mr. Egan's was an inspirational teacher. As someone who lived in South Sacramento, he was an education champion in the Meadowview community. Mr. Egan's provided our students and families nearly 20 years dedicated service to our district and to our families. As someone who is African American, many of our students, Black and brown students in the Meadowview community, really related to Mr. Egan's. Mr. Egan understood the lived struggles of our students. If you knew Mr. Egan's, you knew that he extended himself to his students, both inside and outside of the classroom. He always empathized with our students that their current circumstances need not define them, but hard work and perseverance would prove to be life-changing for them. Mr. Egan's taught at Father Keith B. Kenny, Mark Hopkins until it closed, and then lastly at Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks staff will be dedicating a reading bench outside of his last classroom as a testament to his friendship, passion, and outstanding teaching ability for our school community. Mr. Egan's will be truly missed by all our staff, our parents, our students, and the entire school community. Tonight, I would like to adjourn in the memory of Mr. Egan's, but also wanted to take this opportunity to maybe have a teacher or Mr. Sullivan say a few words before we adjourn.
Good evening, Superintendent Aguilar and board members. Thank you. My name is Ruby Abram. I am a special education teacher at Rosa Parks K-8 school. And as we close this evening's session, it is with great honor my colleagues and I come here this evening to pay our last respects to Mr. Anthony Egan's. Thank you. We are so honored to be here. We want to talk about we have already talked about, his many contributions to education. He was tireless in his efforts of educating his students and spent countless hours working with the community, reaching out to parents, and conferring with parents on a regular basis about the progress and achievement of his students. He was a vital member of the Rosa Parks community. He often had a friendly smile and readily engaged staff members in conversations about the many issues that concerned him as well as offering so many well-thought-out ideas of how students could grow and prosper in our school environment. Mr. Egan's was a real team player. He cared about all of his students, including our students with disabilities. We will sorely miss your presence, Mr. Egan's, and we will keep you in our light. Thank you.
Thank you. That was beautiful. At this time, we're going to adjourn to closed session.